Hey everybody, Principal Stanley here with an update. I want to talk to you a little bit about the milestones, particularly why are the milestones important? The milestones are end of grade and of course tests that begin at the end of April. And you'll hear a lot of conversation from school, from teachers about how important those tests are. You'll also hear conversations in your neighborhood perhaps about why do they have to take these tests or why are these tests important? And I want to take you through that so that you're educated on why they're important and why we want students to do well on those assessments. So let's start with why we want students to do well on the milestones. Number one, when we get those scores back and students have performed well, it's incredibly validating for our entire team at Simpson. It not only validates that we planned and did instruction well the first time around, but we also identified students that struggled, provided intervention for secondary instruction. Besides seeing, hey, we did really well, it may also offer us insights to areas that we can improve upon next school year. So the data is really good for both celebrating success in our building and identifying needs. More importantly for you, when students do well on the test, it positively impacts our CCRPI score. I'm going to talk to you about what that score is and what it means, but in the end, good CCRPI scores are good for the community. Okay, so CCRPI stands for College and Career Ready Performance Index, which is quite a mouthful, but what you need to know is that it is a score, a grade, or a set of grades from the state. It's actually 4 different scores that the Governor's Office of Student Achievement compiles into one number. And essentially that grade is from 0 to 100, just like a grade in a class. 100 is perfect. Last time we got that score from the Governor's Office of Student Achievement for last year's testing and for last year's achievement and growth, it was 86.9, which is a great score. Of course, I would love to see that score in the 90s, but the reason this is important is because that is a public-facing number. You can look up that number or that set of numbers called the College and Career Ready Performance Index for any school in the state. I'm going to go into what makes up that number, and you'll see how this ties back to the milestones. As I just mentioned, CCRPI is actually made up of 4 different scores, and then the Governor's Office of Student Achievement combines those scores into one number. That is that outward-facing number. Ours was an 86.9. Each of the components has a different weight. The first component is content mastery. That's 30% of the overall score. Then there is progress, 35%. Closing the gaps makes up 15% of the score, and then 20% is left for readiness. And I'm going to very briefly take you through each of those components and what goes in to that percentage. So content mastery is how much of our content, our standards-based content, did our students master? Well, how do we measure that? I'll tell you how we measure that. We look at math in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, ELA in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, science in 8th grade, and social studies in 8th grade. Those are 100% drawn from the milestones results, which means 30% of our CCRPI, that content mastery category, that section is all drawn from how our students achieve on the milestones. Another note, if less than 95% of our students participate in the test, and we want 100% of our students to participate, but if that number drops below 95, however high we actually scored, that number gets dinged lower because we have a low participation. So we want everybody to participate. We want everybody to score as high as possible. Progress is the largest component of the CCRPI at 35%. And progress is how far are we moving students as compared to similar peers across the state. So they take every student across the state, they put them into tiers as far as how did they score the last time they took the milestones, how did they score this time, and how far are those students moving. So we look at how did they move in math, how do they move in ELA, and how do they move in their English language proficiency? So our students that are English language learners, how much did they grow? Once again, progress, which is 35% of CCRPI, is 100% from the milestone. So again, not only do we want students to score their highest, we want that score to be an improvement as compared to similar peers from the previous year. Closing the gaps is based on our subgroups. It's a small percentage of the CCRPI. It's only 15%. It's the smallest component, but that's our subgroups. So our gifted students, are students with disabilities. Every ethnic subgroup, our Black students, our white students, our Asian students, our Hispanic students, how did they score as to how they scored the previous year? Again, this goes to, are we growing each of our subgroups? We look at that data based on the milestone. So again, this 15% is 100% from milestone scores. I think you're noticing a trend here with each of these CCRPI components. The last piece of CCRPI is readiness, and that's 20%. It's got several factors. One is literacy. Are you reading on grade level? The second is called beyond the core. That's how many classes are you passing beyond the core? How many high school classes are you taking? How many fine arts classes are you taking? And also attendance plays a role in that. So the first component, literacy, is definitely from the milestones. The other two are not. So 33% of this segment is based on the milestones. So when we think about those four components that I just went through, content mastery, progress, closing the gaps, and readiness, 85% of that CCRPI score that ends up being our overall number, that was 86.9 the last time around, 85% of that comes directly from the milestones test. That's in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math and ELA, and 8th grade science and social studies. So now that you have an understanding of CCRPI, let's talk about the reality of those milestones tests. We know that the milestones only test this much of what goes on at Simpson Middle School, right? There's a lot more than 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math and ELA, and a lot more than 8th grade science and social studies. That's the milestones. Of course, we're teaching all the contents and connections and band, chorus, and orchestra. We're also teaching all of our soaring expectations and just how to be an amazing eagle. Like, schools do this much, but we're tested on this much. Unfortunately, this is the game that we've been given to play, and this is the number that faces publicly, or almost 100% of our public facing number is milestones tests. The other reality is that high stakes tests are just a part of academia from this point forward. Whether it's the EOC at the end of a high school course, whether it's the PSAT, the SAT, the ACT, on and on and on. So being comfortable with, or getting used to, even if you're not comfortable, high stakes tests at the end of a unit, at the end of the course, at the end of a grade is just part of the academic experience. And we recommend that 100% of our students begin that in middle school so that it's not a surprise when they get to high school. Okay, so what is the point of all that and knowing about CCRPI? Let's get back to the question, get to the point, Principal Stanley. Let's get back to the question, why are milestones important? Well, number one, as I already said, it is a reflection of the excellence that we have going on at Simpson every day. We want to be the best of the best. We want those numbers to be as high as possible. But number two, all those scores go into a public-facing number from the Governor's Office of Student Achievement. Google it for any school in the state. You'll be able to find their CCRPI scores and then their overall one number from the Governor's Office of Student Achievement. Ours was 86.9. We want that to be as high as possible. And you know what good scores do for property value. You should. The higher your test scores, the higher that number, the higher your property value becomes. So we want our scores to be as high as possible, both because it's validating for what goes on inside Simpson. It's also good for our community. So we want everybody to take those tests and perform as highly as they possibly can on those tests. I want to say thank you for taking a moment to learn about why the milestones are important. As always, we are here to answer any of your questions. If you have milestones questions, you want further information about anything that was shared in this video, reach out to me. Happy to answer any of your questions. Thank you again, as always, for your partnership. The partnership with our parents is a huge part of why Simpson will continually be the best of the best.